Over a little bit about your career. I mean, how you started and, for the people that just know your name or don't know you, they can get a little idea who you are and how you got into surfing and yeah, and all your winnings.
Yeah. Look, I grew up in San Diego, California, so obviously a beach culture in this part of the world, and just kind of got introduced to the water at an early age. My dad was a beach volleyball player, so I was at the beach for hours, and the ocean was there, and I had a boogie board, so I started off there, and then just slowly kind of transitioned into stand-up surfing, and then as I got older, the town where I lived had really small waves all the time. So that brought longboarding into my life. And then, yeah, as I kind of got into my early teens, I started competing, and there's like a small local contest where I grew up, and I started doing that. And I found that I was good enough to kind of make the finals. And, I saw these, that was at the time when Taylor Steele was making the movies and all that like hype was coming into surfing. And all those guys were local too, like they're San Diego guys too. So that kind of inspired me to be like, hey man, maybe I could like have a career here and like do this for a living and get paid to go surfing. Like that was a cool thought. So started competing, transitioned into the pro stuff at around 16, and then finally won a world title in 2011, backed it up in 2012, got a third one in 2017, and then now I'm number one going into the final stop. So pretty cool.
Yay, right on.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then how long you been working with Firewire?
I've been working with Firewire since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty much like all my world titles, all my success, it's all been Firewire. Like there was definitely a transition point when I started working with Dan and Firewire where I went from doing well to like actually winning events. So there's something in there, I don't know what, but something with Dan's magic touch and Firewire's technology that definitely clicked.
It's about the time Firewire just started.
Yeah, a bit before that. Like when I came on, Taj was on board.
Uh-huh.
So it was a little bit after, maybe a couple years after they started. But yeah, and I sampled their boards probably 2 years before I actually started riding for them. The
Uh-huh.
tech kind of caught my eye and piqued my curiosity, wanting like a super light, high performance longboard. And so I got to Mark Price, who was the CEO at the time, let me sample a board that Dan had shaped, and I loved it. And I was like, "Hey man, I'd love to work with you guys." And at the time, I was kind of like, "Yeah, we're not really ready for that yet." And then, yeah, fast forward a couple of years, I kind of circled back and was like, "Hey, I'd really love the tech. I'd love to talk." And yeah, it transitioned into me being a part of the company.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have a couple different techs. The what's the first tech that you've been testing and riding and you won the contest on?
The first tech that we just came out with is the Helium stuff. That's the Helium with the variable flex I-beam stringer in it. So that's got that Polonia wood nose cap that you see, kind of that timber tech look in the nose, and then transfers into like a Helium through the tail with that variable flex I-beam stringer to control the flex.
What does that do? It's just different. You can change the flex or something, or what does that mean?
Basically, the thickness, like the width of the I-beam stringer, transfers from thinner in the nose area to wider through the tail. And so what that does is that controls your flex so that when you're on the tail, you're definitely putting more pressure through your turns and really sinking your weight into your turns. So it has a thicker I-beam stringer to be a little bit stiffer back there and control the flex. Whereas in the nose, when you're up there, you're generally being pretty lightweight and not trying to apply a ton of pressure. So you don't need so much rigidity in there. So you can have sort of a thinner I-beam stringer and give you a little bit less flex, a little bit less weight, and a little more play.
Mm. So when you rode this board, what is the biggest thing that you noticed compared to other boards that you've ridden in the past?
Just a different sensation. I felt like I could feel the board more. Like I had
Uh-huh.
a more of a sensitivity to it through my feet, and it let me kind of adapt to it better. And it just kind of on the nose, I noticed that it was sort of smoother because it didn't have that rigidity. I wasn't feeling every little lump and bump on the nose. And then in the tail, I could just feel that sort of more control through that thicker I-beam stringer.
So with that timber tech on the nose, it doesn't give it that extra weight, or does it just balance it out, or what?
There's a little bit extra weight, but when you put a fin in the tail, it sort of balances it back out again, right? Like I feel like when you have a normal board and you throw a fin in the tail, all of a sudden you're weighted back, especially with like 2+1s. Like that's three fins is a couple pounds of weight, at least a
Yeah.
pound and a half. So that starts to sink the tail, and that Polonia kind of balances that. So when you pick it up and
Oh,
it doesn't have a fin in it yet, it might feel a touch nose heavy, but as soon as you put a fin in, it really balances it back out.
that makes a lot of sense because when you put a board under your arm with fins on it, you're like, whoa, this is pretty heavy in the back.
Yeah,
Right
totally. Like
on.
you pick it up off the rack with no fins, you're like, oh, this thing's so light. And you put fins in it, and you're like, whoa, kind of the back end wants to sit down a little bit. So just
Yeah.
sort of balance that out. And it
Oh,
gives
that's
you
pretty
that
cool.
a little bit of a stiffer feel on the nose, which in combination with that thinner I-beam stringer, it kind of balances it out so that you get a smoother ride.
Yeah, right on. So, the inside foam is like the traditional helium where it's a point 0.5 pound foam. Is that what it is? Or
Yeah, it's the same build as what the helium stuff is. So like I had a Rob Machado's Sunday in
uh-huh.
helium and I loved it. I was like, guys, this stuff's insane. I'd love to try a longboard in it. So that's sort of that same build, but just with the I-beam variable I-beam stringer in it, just to kind of adapt it to the longboard because it's such a longer distance. You need a little bit of something in there to kind of hold it together.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to be snapping boards left and right.
No, and it just kind of it helps you control that flex a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So right now, well, so it's in the gem.
Yep.
And the what other models do you have it in?
It's in the gem and the specialty.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the first two boards of the drop that are out now.
Okay. So the gem is pretty, I mean, if you're looking for an all-around board to cruise, I mean, when you came to Hawaii, you brought it here to Hawaii to single fin in Waikiki, and then when it was pumping in country, you took it out country too.
Yeah, it's just something like you don't want to travel with a bunch of boards, or you just want to have one board and have that like consistent feel and know your board. But when it's 1 to 2 foot, you can throw a single fin in and trim and cruise and nose ride. And then when it gets bigger, you can throw a 2+1 in and still rip it off the tail. So it's just something that me and Dan tried to work on to have sort of a one board quiver that covers all the bases, no matter what you want to ride or how you want to ride
So for the guys that only can get permission once a year to get a board from their wife, that's the board.
it. That's it. Or if you only want to travel with one board in your board bag, like you're worried about airline baggage fees or whatever, just that's the one board for it.
Yeah. So that board on the nose has does it is it like a slight teardrop concave on it?
Yeah, so it's got like a pretty defined teardrop concave on the nose, and
Uh-huh.
then that transfers into a double concave through the tail. So it just channels that water really well, and it just flows, which is what makes that board so fast. Like it's
Yeah.
got a little bit of a flatter rocker profile. The water comes in through that teardrop and then channels through that double concave and just flies.
Yeah. And then the rear end, I mean, for people that haven't seen it, the back end is pretty much like a high performance shortboard when you feel the bottom.
Yeah, totally. It's Dan's pretty synonymous with that double concave and water flow and making boards that go super fast in small waves. Everybody knows sweet potato, that sort of stuff. So Dan just kind of put that in there saying, look, you want to go fast on little waves? Let's try this. And I think flies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got that diamond tail too, which is kind of that little bit sexy feel to it, shortens the rail line a little bit and gives it a little bit more in between a rounded pins drawn out turns and a square tails pivot. You kind of have both. So it's kind of
Oh.
part square, part diamond. So you get a little bit of both.
So on better waves, it'll still hold too, and it's easier to control.
Exactly. Exactly. On better waves, you have that drawn out rounded pintail feel. And then in smaller waves, you have that pivot feel, which is really cool to be able to have that in two different boards.
Specialty. So that
Yeah.
board is it's more of a traditional board, but except towards the back, it has a little bit of an edge, right, on the
Yeah.
rails.
Yeah. It's more of like a pintail speed shape, almost, I
Oh,
would call it. It's a little
yeah.
more pulled in the nose and the tail. Got some hard edge, pretty flat rocker. It's just designed to go really fast, basically, and nose ride well. So it's got sort of a little bit of performance hidden in that traditional outline.
Oh, so it's pretty much perfect for Hawaii because on days you're trying to make that section, you can get on the tail and kind of pump it down the line, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And like really flat. So when you get to like South Shore waves that are like a little bit softer, you still have that flat trim speed. Like I rode it in Huntington when I won that duct tape there. And to me, the reason I won is because I had that board because it's so flat, I could transition across that dead spot in the water at Huntington between the outside and the inside. by just standing in the middle of the board. I didn't have to do anything. The board just took off. So to
Oh,
me, like having that when you have sort of reef breaks that might have soft sections or, kind of fatter walls, but you still want to be able to get speed, boards like that work really well.
yeah. So does it have a little bit of a kick on the tail, just a slight kick, or is it really flat?
No, it's
Oh,
really flat. Yeah, I'm not a big kicktail guy.
uh-huh.
I don't like the drag that that creates. I just want to go really fast. I don't know. I'm a speed-oriented surfer, so for me, like I like just kind of a flatter thing. I want my board to just stand up and fly when I stand up.
Yeah, yeah. And then on the nose, does it have a concave or anything like that, or?
Yep, yep, same sort of teardrop concave as the gem, a little bit less drastic and pronounced, a little bit smoother, and it flows a little bit more evenly through the midsection of the board as it goes kind of flat, and then it's pretty much just a flat bottom through the tail. We just wanted to
Oh,
keep that speed up. It doesn't have a rolled bottom or a double concave. It's pretty flat.
somebody that's about 180 and they're riding like the 9.0 or the 9.3. Um, what size fins would you recommend on that?
I'd say if you're going to go single fin and you want that single fin feel, I'd go with a 10-inch fin. And then if you're going to ride sort of more of a 2+1, I'd go with about a 7.5-inch center and about a 3.75-ish side. So a little bit of a smaller side, a little bit of a bigger center, just to give you a little more pivot.
That's right. The board now has a 2+1.
Yeah,
It
yeah. So
used to
we
be just
updated it with the two
strictly,
plus one option. Yeah.
wow. So did you guys have to move the center fin box in relation to the side fins or anything like that, or just left it the
No,
same?
no, it was actually when we originally made it, I had side fin boxes in mind. I was like predominantly a 2+1 guy. And I wanted that option in there, and then we eliminated it. Just it seemed like the single fin thing was more popular and we didn't need to have the side fin boxes in it. But we had a lot of requests over the years for to put the side fin boxes back in it. And I personally still ride mine that have the side fin boxes and I love it. So yeah, it's just cool to have the option.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're riding, one board and you want to take it out when it's bigger and you need that little bite on the side, throwing in that you have what is your smallest fin? Like the three in is it
3.75. Yeah.
3.75? Yeah, just throwing those in
Yeah,
and then a little bit smaller center fin, you'll be able to get the bite and the speed down the line then, huh?
exactly. Yeah. It just gives
Yeah.
you a little extra contact point there and a little bit more speed too. Like those bigger days when you need a little bit of a hold through that bottom turn, you don't get that
Yeah.
washout single fin feel. You get that drive. So
Mm.
it's nice.
Right on. Hey, thank you very much,
Cool.
man. I'll hit you up
No
again.
worries. Thank you, Dave. Have a
Okay,
good one.
you too. Tell
Yeah.
the family I said hi.
Will do for sure.
All right, bye.
Thanks.